Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Awakening Potential podcast, your gateway to the extraordinary. Today we're featuring Kerri Lewis, who has mastered turning everyday moments into milestones of wisdom. Kerri is an addiction and mental health recovery coach dedicated to helping individuals break through free from addiction and overcoming mental health challenges to live a life fully authentic. I'll let her talk about the rest of the journey as we go on. But Kerri embodies the transition from ordinary to extraordinary, making her the perfect guide for today's exploration. So join us as we delve into her transformative journey and glean insights to elevate your own life. Let's embark on enlightening this journey together. So a warm welcome, Kerri Lewis. Thank you for being here.
Oh, it's such a privilege to be here and an honor to hold space with another person who is, continuing to show up and embrace the light, so to speak.
Thank you. Absolutely, absolutely. So I'm curious, Kerri, like who is Kerri the woman? And then
Mm,
we'll ask about the backstory.
love. It's so interesting. I saw you post a question last week, I think, and using one word to encapsulate you. And I think that's why I gravitate toward you because we attract what we are, right? I truly understand that. And as a person, I am love. I am love in its messiest and truest forms because I think real love for anybody doesn't encapsulate just joy, compassion, support, but it's messy, it's growth, it's overcoming fears, and so yeah, that's who I would be. And curious. I'm so incredibly curious all of the time about everything, every experience, even like I'll even go so far as I was sitting on the toilet, right? Getting up and I was watching how my feet landed on the ground and where my back calves felt the tightness. And so that to me is who I am, is just always curious and loving.
Love it. I love it. And that's why I'm certainly attracted to you as well. You're just such a beautiful soul. So I know we all have our journeys and we all have our challenges and such. But for the listening audience, excuse me, who feels that they're not necessarily playing big per se, but they feel like maybe there's more to life than what they're doing now. What along your journey? Well, first off, let me ask you this. I just got this, like, what did you play with as a kid? Because I too was very curious.
I sang. I sang a lot. I don't know that even now when I think about it, I didn't like playing with dolls so much.
Yeah,
But my escape was singing, locking myself in the room and just being theatrical and dancing and really just being very expressive.
love it, love it.
Yeah.
So tell me about a little bit about, yeah, thank you for sharing that. Um, I know as a child, and I believe I'm a little older than you are, I was very curious and I was squelched with my curiosity because my dad used to say, "Oh, you ask too many questions, go out and play, go out and play." Too many questions, and it just seemed to follow me throughout life, being the inquisitive, wondrous woman that I am today. A
Yeah.
child mostly. What was your experience?
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head, right? People who show I think we're all curious. I think everybody comes out of the womb and we're absorbing information and we're filtering and sorting. But I think just based on the societal constructs and what our parents were raised with, that curiosity is conditioned out of us. And or for me, I was punished immensely, so it wasn't even just go out and play. I was curious about the energy that I felt in the room. Like there was always this tension and this fear, and I would put voice to what it was I felt in the room. And of course, that felt completely foreign and unsafe to anybody who wasn't taught to honor their feelings. And so I really, not only was I told to, not ask the questions, but I was really led to believe that I was crazy, like that I was misinterpreting or not really seeing things for what they were. And so for a long time, I struggled with figuring out what I was truly feeling and how I was experiencing the world and how others were telling me I should be experiencing the world. Yeah.
Right, right. Awesome. Thank you. So I know you've had a tumultuous past, right? We all
Yeah.
have our version of it. Whatever you'd like to share that might inspire the listening audience that no matter where we go in life, there's always a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, it goes back to what you asked me about how people received my curiosity. I then, I really felt like there was something wrong with me, that I was bad for being vocal and inquisitive. And so I always had this angst, and at 14, I could no longer sit in the experience I was having, and so I dove headfirst into the world of drugs and sex as a way to numb out this combative narrative. And when you live a world of numbing out and seeking love through sex with anybody, you're inevitably going to suffer more because you're losing more of yourself in those encounters. And I did, and I ended up in a very abusive relationship. I experienced sexual trauma twice by people who supposedly loved me. And it really caused me to spiral into deep depression and anxiety. Fortunately, I have a twin sister, and she was able to have a conversation with me that said, hey, if you don't change, you're going to die. And I didn't love myself at the time, so I wouldn't have done the work for myself. I know I wouldn't have, but I loved her enough. We'd gone through the wars together. She was the person that I could not imagine leaving this world to face the world alone. And so I started to do the work, really wholeheartedly. And it's an evolution, right? So I broke free from drugs and sex only to fall victim to identifying my worth and how far I could climb the corporate ladder. So I fell into work addiction, and then I'm miserable because you know, just working hours endlessly to really care for another person's needs. I fell into alcoholism. So it was an ebb and flow, but throughout that whole time, curiosity is what saved me, because even as early as 14, I started studying psychology to understand why my parents behaved the way they did. And so the years and years and years of accumulated knowledge from books, I started to really immerse myself in by taking action rather just having that insight. And as a result, was able to break free from all addictions and then start to learn myself at that really core level where I understood that there's nothing wrong with me for being curious, and I am in fact highly intuitive and can read where people are coming from in any given moment, whether they put voice to that or not. And that's a gift rather than a curse. And the more I leaned into that, the more empowered I became, and the more I learned to love myself exactly where I'm at, rather than to think I need to be somebody else, or interestingly enough for your audience, be doing, right? We don't have to do to be accepted. We are enough where we're at right now. And when you can really accept that, you come from a place free from judgment, and the world of possibilities and opportunities opens up to you.
I love that. I love that. You and I think very much alike on that one. I remember being up on stage, well, a stage, it was a platform, but still it was like in front of 800 people. And I'm like, shaking my, and God, that was back in God, it must have been about 2005 or something like
Hmm.
2005. And I remember declaring myself to be love, and I had no idea what that looked like. I didn't love myself. Wasn't worthy. I was victimizing myself, and it was really a journey.
Yeah.
into really stepping into who I declared myself to be. And when we declare, right, words are like your wand, not are like your wand, they are your wand.
Yeah.
Abracadabra, there's the magic, so be careful what comes out of your mouth. And yeah, so it was a journey for me as well, really stepping into self-love. And now that I'm there, oh man, it's just such a joyous ride. And I'm meeting amazing people like yourself, and like attracts like.
Yeah. Well, it's so interesting. So think about this right before you hit record, you were talking about how I connected you with people. And
Yeah,
when we love ourselves, we do what feels really right and nurturing for ourselves. So for me, I'm never going to introduce people that I'm aligned with via email because that doesn't align with who I am. And I think that's a really important for the listening audience to understand is it's when you declare that you're going to love yourself, it's not all roses. In fact, I would say that it's some of the hardest work you'll ever do. But
absolutely.
in that work, you discover what feels so yummy, so nurturing, so just right for you. And then you live in that space and you accept others who cannot accept that space, not in judgment, but in acceptance, and you're okay. And then we attract the people who can say, okay, you want to introduce me to people your way, cool beans. And that's what I love about self-love is you show up, it feels good, and then the people who get it come along, and then it amplifies both of you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well said, because I couldn't have said it any better. I am such an advocate for self-love. And as you said, it was not an easy journey, but every time it was like the ebb and flow in my life, and I'm somebody who loves to kayak. I live down here in Florida. I kayak all the time. And I always use the metaphor of going against the flow, and it's like, okay, I want this, I want this. Okay, let me turn the boat around because it's so much easier. And once I
Yeah.
started turning my kayak around and going with the flow, life became so easy and it became wondrous. And just, I took on a year, yes. I took on a year, yes. I had read Oprah's book and I'm like, I can't do that. Well, your brain is always listening. And if
Yeah.
you say you can't, you won't, right? Or you can't. And I just decided I'm going to take on a year, yes. Like, what is that going to look like? It was the most magical year. And the more I was a yes to life, the more magic showed up and the more I learned to love myself.
Yeah. Yeah, because the opportunities truly are endless. And it's,
Yeah.
I'm constantly listening, right? Not just with my heart, which really speaks volumes. Like I can pick up on where a person is just by being in the space with them. But as I listen to them, it is interesting to see how many people continuously and without thought close doors on themselves
Yeah,
all the
absolutely.
time, all the time. And so, you said it, abracadabra, right? Words are casting spells all the time. If you can do nothing else in this moment, give
Yep.
yourself permission to be open to experience new things.
Yeah.
Because when you say that, then you start to the universe will bring you things, you'll just experience things, and some of those things will really serve you, some of them won't, but
Ex-
it's an opportunity to learn yourself in experiencing
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
things that are coming towards you. So yeah, it's
Absolutely.
curiosity and an openness of heart have given me the ability to go from, playing really, really small, working for society and working to achieve goals and results for other people to just allowing love to flow from me and being able to connect with wherever I'm at, with whomever I'm at, without trying to produce anything. And in that, I experience amazing results and attract wonderful clients, and the work I do is what fills my cup.
Love that. So tell a little bit. I mean, you went from here to corporate to what you're doing today. Like, how did that all come about? And
Yeah, so My oldest sister died. She drank herself to death, and I was in her apartment. And at this time, I was still working to achieve success in corporate America, drinking. But again, I by then I'd studied quantum physics, neuroscience. I mean, you name it, I dive into it, right? And so I had an understanding that I needed to take action. I just didn't know what that looked like. And when my sister died, well, that was the action. That was the universe saying, all right, well, here's another opportunity to choose differently.
Yeah.
And so I made a promise. I spoke into the existence that I was going to break free from the generational trauma that's pervaded my family for many years. And do things differently, and I did. I drove cross country because the
Mm.
experience that I had while in that apartment was pretty traumatizing, and I didn't wanna bring that back to my daughters. That was my biggest thing. But in that 3-day journey driving nonstop, I stopped 1 hour. I drove from San Diego, California to Massachusetts. I don't
Well,
recommend it, but it's what I did. And I just had this catharsis, and I just knew that I was never, ever going to operate the same. I didn't. Within 6 months, I walked away from everything, my secure job with Nordstrom, my assets, my house, and my marriage. And I started to really examine all of the reasons why I behaved the way I did, right? And that's when I learned that I didn't think I was worthy unless I was achieving success because I didn't finish high school and my parents come from academia. And everything I had learned was, you're not going to have a fulfilling, successful life if you don't go to school. So I did, right? And then I was hired to open up a cannabis company. And by this time, I'm sober. So I'm not even consuming cannabis, but I looked at it as an opportunity to really help people because cannabis has medical properties. And I understood about the endocannabinoid system. And it was successful. I created culture that was inclusive, that was diverse, that really fostered and nurtured my employees, which then translated it to success in business. But when COVID hit, I was in an industry where I had a bird's eye view of just how ill-equipped people are taking care of their own selves, especially during change, which we're constantly going through. It's just COVID was highlighting the constant change we're in a more profound way. And at that time, I felt morally conflicted. I could no longer be part of an industry that, while on one hand definitely serves medical needs to a degree, was also did the propensity to overconsume and to lean into addictive behavior as a coping mechanism and to numb out rather than to heal was too great. And that's when I jumped into my business. And it's an evolution. I've run business since I was 17 years old. So I thought I was going to be a business coach. But even while I was coaching executives and leaders, it was clear to me that these people did not have a strong sense of self. They weren't operating from empowerment, they were operating from fear, which can be incredibly disempowering. And then I started to realize that some of the most powerful people I was working with were the most insecure. And I really wanted to empower people to give themselves permission to be themselves and to own who they are in whatever environment they are in. And that's when I went into addiction and mental health coaching, because I realized that if we're not getting to the root of the belief systems and the ingrained conditioning and patterns, then it didn't matter how successful their business was, these people were still going to suffer. And when we suffer, what happens? We inevitably impose that suffering on others, unintentionally, but we do. And so that's why I do what I do now.
Absolutely, and thank you. So for the listening audience, first and foremost, all your contact information is going to be in the show notes. I know you're offering a complimentary session to
Yeah.
whomever would like it, and the contact information will be in there as well. But before we part, is there any words of wisdom or any Kerryisms that you'd like to
Yeah.
leave the listening audience with?
Yeah. We hear this a lot, and I remember hearing this when I was struggling, and I'm like, "Ugh, that's so cliche," but it's really true. And I truly believe that we do the very best we can with the information we have. And so, for the listening audience, one, you showed up to listen, and that's enough, because we're always planting seeds, and those seeds germinate. And so, even if it takes you 26 years, like it did me, to get from, studying psychology to applying it, you're where you're meant to be. And secondly, be gentle and kind with yourself, right? Our biggest opposition is ourselves. We treat ourselves so poorly. And when you can just give yourself a little space and choose love and kindness for yourselves, in those moments where you remember to do so, those moments will open up insights that will help you become even more loving to yourself.
Absolutely beautifully put. Thank you. Kerri, thank you so much for your contributions today. It's always a pleasure connecting with you.
It's a gift and an honor, honestly. You're a gift to the world, and I'm honored to call you a friend, Karen.
Myself as well. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. To our listening audience, thank you for joining us on the Awakening Potential podcast. And as you step back into your world, remember the bridge from the ordinary to the extraordinary is built with small steps of change and big leaps of faith. Let today's insights from Kerri be a guiding light as you navigate your own journey. And until next time, continue to awaken your potential and illuminate the extraordinary within. Stay inspired. Bye for now.